But I want to bring up on stage Marguerite Crespillo and our founder, Glenn Sanford. Woo! Come on. Come on. Yeah,
Well, wow, this is pretty exciting to be here. You know, I feel incredibly blessed and honored to get to talk to you today, Glenn. I remember when I joined EXP in 2016, and I went to the very first shareholders event that after I joined,
right.
And it was in San Diego, 2017. You guys gave me the honor of speaking. There were an entire 300 people in the room. And so now we have almost 10 times that just in this room, but then another 10 times that at the company level, 85,000 agents. It's pretty amazing.
Pretty crazy, yeah.
Yeah, it's been an insane ride for sure. So I got a few questions to ask because I know that everyone is excited to hear this. And you know, I did a podcast with you, if you remember, back in 2017 on my Real Estate Real World. And at that time, there were only 2,500 agents at EXP. And so again, this room has eclipsed everything that we did back in the day. So it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty, I go to, every once in a while I go to a concert or to a sports venue, and they'll say, it seats 60,000 people. I'm like, oh my God, EXP has more people than this stadium can hold. That's
well, I think it won't be
crazy.
long before we'll be having to fill a stadium, don't you agree? Right, like this, we're not that far off, exactly. Okay, so I got a couple good questions for you that we have been requested to ask. And here's the first one. What was the secret sauce, in your opinion, for the dynamic, unprecedented growth of EXP?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. There were really two ingredients. One was really the aligned compensation model. You know, the way that we structured rev share and eventually equity. And then I think the fact that, you know, we were built by actual agents that were in the trenches listing and selling real estate. You know, I still, I get comments quite a bit at this event and obviously at our big major events about how, you know, I'm in amongst, you know, with everybody. Because I actually don't really think of myself as anything other than an agent that just came up with a better way to sort of attract agents to now what's an 84,000 person real estate team. And you know, whether it be, you know, pulling from, you know, books that I read, businesses I run. I started 17 different businesses over the years, and you'd learn a little bit each time about the nuances of business. And I think the nuances is where the secret is. It's once you don't really understand it if you're just, you know, a person who just builds a company because it looks good on paper. And there's, you know, we've got copycats and other things. They're sort of doing it, but they're not doing it from a position of strength. They're doing it from a position of, well, if EXP did it, then we can do it. But they don't actually understand what it means to be an agent in the trenches. And so I think the combination of actually iterating and continuing to iterate on the agent value proposition and actually thinking about it from you know, an agent's perspective, as being somebody that's in the field. It's about lead gen. It's about listening, you know, having those hard conversations. Right now, the hard conversations are with sellers. You know, if a buyer wants to buy, hallelujah, right? Because you're going to get paid. But if a seller wants to sell, you know, it's a little tougher right now.
Yeah, what's a price reduction?
Yeah, what's a price? Yeah, if you got your license in the last, you know, 2, 3, 4 years, your price reduction, what's that? You know, escalation clauses now. You got that one down in spades.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, you know, I'll pay $1,000 more than any other competing offer, all the way up to $10 million.
Yeah.
Just give me the property.
Exactly. Yeah, those days have changed, right?
They have.
Like having been in real estate 29 years, I've said a lot. We have an entire generation right now of agents and consumers who've not seen a declining or even a challenging market, right? We've only had low rates and prices rising for the last, well, since 2010.
Right. Yeah.
And the craziness is you started this company in 2009 during one of the toughest markets in history.
It was actually the best time, quite frankly, to do it. And if you're, you know, I'm sure there's some folks here that are just recently licensed, this is actually the best time to become an agent.
Yeah.
Because if you're willing to do what it takes, and by the way, if you're willing to do what it takes, you will be successful. But one of the challenges is if you've had it easy for a few years and didn't know it was easy, you might have already thought you were doing what it took.
Yeah.
And so then you have to do this whole mental reset. And that's tough if you haven't learned how to do it in a tough market. So I think there's, if you're a new agent and you're willing to do what it takes, you will be successful. Especially, we get into 2023, probably second half-ish of 2023, we're going to start to see the market improve again, and then all these habits that you're developing of doing what it takes and how many people you need to put in your database just to get one person who might be interested in buying or selling, and then figuring out how many of those that you need to actually get in your database to actually buy and sell. Well, once the market starts going the other way, all of a sudden, it'll feel like you're just taking orders.
Yeah. Well, I heard you say something in your first response is that you had been a part of building 17 different companies before EXP. And I think sometimes we always think like, oh, it was kind of one and done. You walked in and all of a sudden you're like, instant success, right? And those 17 other companies are what led you and helped you, inspire you to do what you created, right?
A little bit. It's how you get into things sometimes is you don't really understand it when you're getting into it. I got into real estate because I was running websites for local communities, Chamber of Commerce's, and I was trying to sell ads on the site to different businesses, and one of them was a realtor, and he decided I was going to get my license. And so I ended up getting my license because of that. He basically told me I had to, and so if you'd met this person and he told you you had to, you would have got your license as well. And then, because I got into it the way I did, I brought sort of an internet focus to it, and then eventually, after a couple years, I started to recognize some things that worked, some from past experience for sure, from an internet lead gen standpoint, because that was kind of where I cut my teeth before real estate. But then I started to actually understand what it meant to be a real estate professional and how you're sold the bill of goods that you own a business, and yet, and some of you've heard me say this, the business really owns you. You're at the mercy of the phone, making sure you're following up and all of that, and if you take a day off, well, you're definitely not making money. If you have to take a month off, you may start to notice it if you can't really take long periods of time off, and that for me meant you didn't own a business, the business owned you. So how do you change that around? And that really came from just paying attention, understanding, recognizing the nuances, seeing who came before us. I mean, whether it be the Kellers or the Exits or the whoever's, the Remaxes, you look at what they had done and what made sense and that type of thing, and you go, okay, I do this differently, I do this differently, I do this differently. And so the 2009 came along, and it was, that's all we could do, was do all those different things to kind of kick off the new company.
Exactly. I remember well in 2009, it was when my husband and I owned an independent brokerage for 22 years. And we made the decision at that time to buy a franchise, which was the biggest mistake we made in 2020 hindsight, right? And that led us into owning what we thought would be a profitable business. And there's a reason brokers are called brokers, right? We've all heard that famous saying, because they're broke. And so we realized quickly that that wasn't the answer. And when we heard about EXP, it was like, well, this is crazy. This completely makes sense. Why didn't we know about this before, right? It was like one of these whole things. Well, this kind of leads me into the next question I have for you. It says, was there a do or die moment for EXP in the first 5 years of the company's existence?
Yeah, so I saw this question and I thought about it. And the do or die moment for us actually was day one. It was the day that I told our entire team they're taking their computers home with them, and we're going to show up in the office as avatars, and this is going to work or it's not going to work.
And they're like, what? We're what?
Yeah, and it was, this is either going to work or it's not going to work, and if it doesn't work, we're looking for work. And that was my exact phrase to the team. And it was the burn the boats moment. It was 2009. We knew that at least at that point in time, owning a bricks and mortar based real estate brokerage made no financial sense. And the other piece was if the markets go in cycles, every 10 years or so, there's major downturns. And so you can kind of just go back 10 years plus or minus a couple of years, and you'll see that every 10 years there's a major downturn in the economy, and it takes out lots of players. A lot of the players that overstretch, like you can look at Compass. They're getting hammered right now, right? They raised a bunch of money when the getting was good. Now the market's coming down. They can't cut costs fast enough in order to sort of get to the other side. So we'll see what happens a year from now, but it's a good chance that they'll have to totally restructure as a company. And if you recognize that these are regular occurrences, and if you're a young agent in your 20s, you don't even know what 10-year cycles are. That's half your life, right? But when you're getting your 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s, you start to recognize that these things happen, time and time again. And so you need to prep for them early on. And so for us, it's like, why not build that model now when we can? And it was a great time to do it too, because we could compensate our managing brokers differently. Today, it doesn't matter who you are, but if you started to do a new company, you're going to have a pretty good payroll cost. But when the market was hammered so much, we could come up with a creative business model to sort of get through that, and we did. We scraped together a business model that worked. But that was the do or die moment. It was we're doing this, or we're doing something else, and that was it. After that, and probably and Jason can kind of even, it was only a few months later. I mean, Jason joined us, and we opened up on the East Coast, and we hadn't even met in person yet. But the model had already started to take on a life of its own. It already started to take on momentum, and then we knew that once we got to about 300 agents, that on our spreadsheets was sort of the first break point. That was when there was enough agents, enough transactions, but we saw when we were going to get there. I mean, we had already sort of done the math. We'd already done the spreadsheets. We said, hey, if we keep on growing at this rate, we're going to be here at this point in time. And sure enough, we hit those almost like clockwork. And then we added the public company element to it. And then things really went parabolic.
So did you even have it lined out this far to 84,000 agents?
Well, the spreadsheet had 84,000 agents on it. Yeah, because all you do is you just replicate your formulas, and you put a whole bunch of columns, and it just sort of, and eventually it gets to 80. Eventually we have as many people in EXP as there are people on the planet, but so. But
did you in your mind, did you see it being this big? Do you remember thinking, wow, it could be like 84, or now we're talking 500,000 agents?
So I think in 2012, I did a video with David Harbour where I talked about the fact that we thought that we might have 50,000 agents. And I think that's about as far as we were willing to talk about.
The dream.
And it was more because anything beyond that, I think, was just totally unbelievable, because at that point we were only a few hundred agents. So a few hundred agents to 50,000 agents is such a big leap. But it's if you look at 84,000 agents to 500,000 agents, that's not that big a leap. 84,000 agents to 1 million agents. It's only 12, 13 times the size we are now. I mean, that's really not that much. I mean, every agent in EXP brought in 12 agents, and we're at 1 million agents.
Did you guys hear that? Did you hear that? Yeah. So if each one of you brought in 12 agents, which is not that challenging to do, who's in? How many of you are willing to bring on 12? Now we're talking, right? Now we're talking. So, okay, so with that said, here is kind of the big question, I guess, that probably everybody is wondering is, can you comment on the current market shift? Like, what is your thoughts and opinions? You addressed it a little bit earlier, but.
Yeah, I mean, we all know, because we all work in the trenches, work with buyers, they're 70% of them are buying based on a mortgage. They're buying based on a payment. And when interest rates go from 2.7 to 5.7%, that affects what people can buy, it affects whether people want to buy, it affects mentally what they're predicting in terms of pricing. I mean, a lot of buyers can afford to buy, and they can afford to get a mortgage, but they are also smart enough to sort of game out, what if I put this off for 6 months to a year? So you got all these things sort of playing in. So we've got cities around the country where we've got sales volumes that's off close to 50%. Wow. So you start to think about if that, and I saw a stat that mortgage applications are down 65% right now. So if you sort of just play that out, then we could go from 6.5 million homes sold in 2021, I think, down to maybe 4 million homes sold, and sort of a run rate. So that that's 35, 40% decrease in sales volume, and that's why I say it's the best time to get in the business. I think it's the best time because a lot of agents will, they coast mainly because they don't want to work harder. Right. So you're going to come in and develop a work ethic that if you're truly committed, when we get to the other side, you're going to have the market share in your local market as an agent. So I think it's a great time to be an agent. I think it's a great time to pick up market share. I think it's a great time to build resiliency in your business. The only reason why it's a bad time is if you're not willing to go for it.
Right. So what I love that you said is it's a great time to build resiliency, and what is a better way to do that than through revenue share and learning what that takes to be able to have an option, right? And I mentioned to you earlier a little bit that in 2020, two things happened, right? We had COVID, and I remember EXP saying, hey, we're built for this, right? Mm-hmm. Like everyone was talking about we had to have an office, and then all of a sudden COVID hit, and they're like, oh, I guess we don't need an office. And we've heard of countless stories, including my own, where I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2020, and when that happened, I thought, what's going to happen to my family? And the greatest blessing ever was to open my bank account that month and have revenue share and stock. And I'm cancer-free, by the way, so I'm not worried about that. But you guys, isn't that why we do what we do? And that's what resiliency is all about, is being able to have those options, which as an industry we have not, in my opinion, had until EXP, until what you created and developed.
It's a really great point. I think that listing homes and selling homes, noble profession. But teaching other people how to list and sell and how to build a business is, I think, an even more noble profession. Because at the end of the day, I think if you're an able-bodied person, you can go and you can make a living, but it's more about how can you help other people do well. And so that's, my head kind of just keeps on going back to how can I help more people? And so right now, the flip side of it is there's probably a few less calls from sellers looking to sell, or maybe you're getting more calls, or don't have as many buyers in your database, but that then means that you've got time to maybe add some agent prospecting in there, and so, how many agents are struggling to figure out how do they do it next, and so can you help them put in a lead gen program for their business? Can you help them with a buyer script that will help get a buyer off the fence to do what they already intended to do, but they need your help to do it? How do you teach somebody how to have the conversations around pricing of a home, and how important staging and all the other things that go into that? Teaching agents how to do that. Now you can monetize what you've learned through the revenue sharing system. You don't have to set up the brokerage. You don't have to go and charge for your services in a traditional sense. You're able to do that because the model is just there. And so you can just attract people to you and say, I'm going to pour into your business and I'm going to help you be successful in whatever way you want to be successful. And that's now my role. And you do that in addition to, it's a great place to do it.
And can you each do that 12 times?
12 times, that's it.
Right? Can you just help 12 people? Go make it your mission to help 12 people, and we'll hit that million agent count, right?
Yep.
There we go. Okay, so with that, can you share with us more about how Revenue Share Plus works? Explain that a bit to us.
Yeah, so, revenue share, of course, as we all know, and you hopefully, you understand how it works, but, the company takes 50% of the company dollar, or 50% of the 20% that we collect while you're capping, and we actually put that in the revenue share pool. And then that gets divided up through the 7 levels every month. We pay out exactly 50% every month. From there, however, through our affiliated services, mortgage, the title and escrow piece, some of the other services that are coming in, half of the profit from those gets added to the 50% that you're getting from the rev share. So it's revenue share, 50% of company dollar, plus 50% of the profits from these other services gets rolled into rev share. And it's done in aggregate. So in order to make these, make it RESPA compliant, it's not based, you can't get paid on transactions, because that's the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act has strong regulations about that. But we can add it to the revenue share pool such that based on what you're earning in rev share, if we've got an extra 2 or 3 or 5 or 10% of profits that can get added to that pool, then your rev share will go up 2, 3, 5, 10% from those affiliated services.
So how are those 12 agents you're helping sound now? Right? So this next question we have is, how relevant is global expansion to each agent here in the room, along with finding 12 agents?
Well, here's the, if you do take revenue share as an opportunity seriously, then eventually your group is going to grow internationally. You won't have a choice. It may be people that, the people you attract may all be within 5 city blocks of where you live. I mean, literally that could be it. But if you get 1 or 2 of those people who take it seriously, and a few of those people take it seriously, and a few of those people take it seriously, eventually you're going to be in other countries around the world. And it wouldn't surprise me, I would tend to think that, I'll use Brent for an example, I would tend to think in Brent's organization, he has agents in every country we're doing business in. Like I haven't done the math. Maybe there's an outlier where we only have 10 agents, and one of them.
I'm sure James knows.
James probably does know. But eventually he'll have people in every single market. And I think if you build this and you build a duplicatable way to attract agents into EXP, eventually you will have agents in every market. And another neat thing that goes along with this is because you're a 1099 independent contractor, in the US, Canada's, I don't know what the designation, but basically independent contractor, any country that we're doing business in that you want to travel to do a workcation, you can actually write that off. Have meetings in those countries with other agents. Attend a mastermind.
There you go.
So
a possible tax tip, of course, talks to your CPA.
Yeah. So I'm not an accountant, and
Nope.
I don't play one on TV, but I did stay in a Holiday Inn a couple weeks ago.
Okay, last question. So how does EXP empower agents and brokers versus the old franchise system?
Well, this one's pretty easy. I think, how many of you have owned a franchise in the room? Okay, so there's a fair number of hands out there. So when you buy a franchise in whatever brand, do you own shares in the parent company?
Nope.
Nope. What happens if your franchise goes out of business?
It's all on you.
It's all on you. So in EXP, one of the big things is, you earn, obviously, I call it token equity. There's a lot of science around why token equity is actually more powerful than big equity. And you can actually look at the contrast between EXP and Compass. You know, Compass bought all their agents. Well, guess who sort of despises the brokers they're part of because they've got handcuffs they can't get out from under, right? So token equity, you know, people, if they choose to stay, they actually are more loyal when token equity, and they can step up and they can get more equity through the Icon program and other things. But you become an equity shareholder, which means that as we grow and as much as you want to participate, could be going in the open market and buying some additional stock into your TD Ameritrade account, or doing the stock comp plan, or just doing the natural equity ownership pieces that you get. If, well, we literally don't have offices that can fail because we're a cloud-based brokerage. And so no matter what your abilities are, your bigger, the equity side is supported by the entire infrastructure. So
all of you.
Yeah, so I was sort of went back and looked at, you know, in 2000, 2008, 2009, and of course I had been at Keller in 2007, but you know, could have looked at Remax or any of the major franchises. Nobody was offering me equity at any of these other brands. Prudential's where I was at before Keller, but nobody's offered me equity at the top. They maybe offer me some local office equity, and that was all pretty limited in terms of the opportunity. So for me, I think the opportunity is just so much bigger and better because you can participate at any level you want to participate. There's liquidity. Now, it doesn't mean that there's liquidity on your stock always at higher prices, but you can choose to sell your stock at any time.
Exactly.
So, which is, if you ever owned a franchise, and in some franchises,
10-year contract,
yeah, it's almost impossible to sell your equity. The number of hoops that they make you jump through, it all is around grinding down the value of your equity so that either a buddy can come in and scoop it up, or they can sort of scoop it up from a corporate perspective. And so you're not really playing a fair game in a franchise system.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Brent. Brent, you're not Brent, you're Glenn. I did so good the whole time, Glenn. I'm sorry, there you go. But I will tell you that in all the years I've known Glenn, not Brent, he's been one of the most humble, genuine, and kind people I've met, and I'm super grateful to be a part of this company. So thank you, Glenn. So
we're only 12 agents away from 1 million agents.
Away.
Thank you.